To Olivia Gazis. That does it for today. We'll be back with another edition of America Decides tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern. The Daily Report with John Dickerson starts right now.
Welcome to the Daily Report for the 2nd of October, 2024. I'm John Dickerson. Israeli troops are now fighting in close quarters with Hezbollah in Lebanon. While another round in the fight with Iran seems like it's on deck, IDF forces also attacked Syria Wednesday. So Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis in Yemen, Iran, Syria. That's 5 different fronts the Israelis are managing. We'll have reports on all of it and analysis. In the southeast, muddy debris and the National Guard in the broken streets after Hurricane Helene. There's cleanup after the vice presidential debate, too. We'll talk to Major Garrett about what from that event leaves a mark and what doesn't, with a little more than a month before the last vote is cast. Plus, new documents from the federal case related to Donald Trump's effort to overturn the election. The port strike is upon us, and the New York mayor gets a new set of charges. And finally, the treasure is found. But who found the treasure? A contest is solved. Almost. The Daily Report starts in a moment. Hello. Thank you for joining us. We begin our report with a crisis in the South, a crisis overseas, and the election to determine who will inherit those crises in the new year. On Wednesday, President Biden viewed the devastation wrought by Hurricane Helene in the Carolinas from his plane. Vice President Kamala Harris surveyed some of the damage in Georgia. At least 180 people have died because of the storm, and thousands are still without power and running water. Tragedy brought Ohio Senator J.D. Vance and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz to an agreement on how awful it all was. And maybe that set the tone for Tuesday's vice presidential debate, which proceeded in a civil manner, despite their deep disagreements on the economy, immigration, and national security, a topic that became even more relevant given the latest out of the Middle East. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Iran will pay for launching nearly 200 ballistic missiles at Israeli territory. During an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council Wednesday, the UN Secretary General pleaded for an end to hostilities.
It's high time to stop the sickening cycle of escalation after escalation that is leading the people of the Middle East straight over the cliff. Each escalation has served as a pretext for the next. This deadly cycle of tit-for-tat violence must stop.
As the world waits for Israel's response to Iran, the IDF is actively fighting Hezbollah militants in southern Lebanon, days after an Israeli airstrike killed the leader of Hezbollah. We have our first report tonight from CBS News foreign correspondent Chris Livesay, who is in Tel Aviv.
Good evening, John. It's Rosh Hashanah, the start of the Jewish New Year tonight. But as Israelis celebrate, tensions are incandescent over Iran's huge missile strikes last night and how Israel will respond. Of the nearly 200 missiles fired by Iran, Israeli defenses shot down almost all of them, not without the help of the U.S. destroyers based in the eastern Mediterranean. But some missiles did get through. We saw massive craters, smashed cars, and destroyed buildings in the outskirts of Tel Aviv. The Israeli military has vowed to strike back. We have the capabilities to reach any point in the Middle East, said the head of Israel's armed forces. Our enemies, who may not have understood this, are about to understand. That message is being carried across the northern border today, as the Israeli military video shows troops advancing through the mountains of southern Lebanon and entering villages, as it announced close-quarter fighting with Hezbollah and the deaths of 8 soldiers. Thousands more are being sent north as part of what the Israeli military is calling a limited ground operation that's expanding in scope by the day. John?
Chris Livesay in Tel Aviv, thank you. Later this hour, we'll take a closer look at the situation between Israel, Iran, and its proxies, and what it might take to end the cycle of escalation. New evidence in the election interference case against former President Donald Trump has been published in a court filing. Judge Tanya Chutkan, who is overseeing the case, has unsealed part of a 165-page report by special counsel Jack Smith. It argues that Trump's alleged attempts to overturn the results of the 2020 election were done as a private candidate rather than in an official capacity. The judge allowed the special counsel to submit the filing after the Supreme Court ruled that presidents are immune from criminal prosecution for official actions taken while in office. For more on this, let's bring in CBS News chief legal correspondent Jan Crawford. So, Jan, what do we know? What are we learning from this unsealed filing?
Well, I mean, in 165 pages, John, there is a lot here, a lot of it that we didn't know, including grand jury testimony that really details, in the special counsel's view, how Trump did conduct this private criminal scheme. And then he also chronicles why he believes all of this alleged conduct is not immune from prosecution, despite that Supreme Court decision, that landmark decision back in July, that presidents do have some kind of official immunity. Jack Smith is saying all of these acts that Trump is he's now alleging that those are unofficial acts, that those are acts of an office seeker, as Trump was a candidate, not an office holder. And John, that really tracks with the language in that Supreme Court opinion back in July, where the court emphasized it was not broad immunity, sweeping immunity for the former president. Presidents still can be prosecuted for those unofficial acts. They can be prosecuted for acts as an office seeker. Now, obviously, Trump is going to dispute all of this. He's going to say, I have absolute immunity. Look at what the Supreme Court ruled, or, whatever, in his legal filing. And then Judge Chutkan will take a look at both of these filings and make her decision on the scope of this immunity, what kind of evidence can be allowed. But that takes time, John. Election is just over a month away. As you know, there is no way we're going to have any of this decided before the election. So this case could well turn on whether or not Trump is reelected in November.
Jan Crawford in Washington for us. Thank you so much, Jan. We'll have more analysis on this later in the hour. President Biden and Vice President Harris traveled separately Wednesday to view the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. The vice president visited Georgia, where she spoke about federal support for emergency response teams. One state to the north, President Biden surveyed South Carolina, looking down on the broken homes and smeared landscape from the air because main roads were inaccessible. He then went to Raleigh, North Carolina to receive an official briefing. During remarks there, he called for disasters like this to be approached in a nonpartisan manner.
I want to thank Republican Governor of South Carolina and the Democratic Governor of North Carolina and all the elected officials who focused on the task at hand. In a moment like this, we put politics aside. At least we should put it all aside, and we have here. There are no Democrats or Republicans, only Americans. And our job is to help as many people as we can, as quickly as we can, and as thoroughly as we can.
Rural Tennessee was also hard hit by Hurricane Helene, and in the town of Irwin, 11 workers at a plastics factory were swept away Friday in the raging floodwaters. 5 were rescued, but 2 died, and 4 others are unaccounted for. Workers said the company, Impact Plastics, told them to work through the flash flood warnings and only dismissed them once the parking lot was flooded and conditions became too dangerous. On Wednesday, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation said it is looking into the allegations. CBS News national correspondent Manuel Bajorquez joins us now from Irwin. What are Tennessee officials and the plastics factory saying in response to these allegations?
Well, Impact Plastics, in its initial statement, denied that any worker was told to stay put or was told that they would be fired if they left. In fact, they referenced some people just got up and left on their own. But today I spoke with an employee, Robert Jarvis, who says they started to move their cars to higher water in the parking lot on Friday. And then they asked, can we leave? Because they started to feel like the situation was getting too dangerous. He says his superior said, we can't leave until I get the green light from higher up. And by the time that she got that, 10 minutes or so, he says, had elapsed. And in that time, the waters rose so dramatically around them that it was then too dangerous for many to get out. They tried to get out in their cars. Some of them tried to jump on a higher profile vehicle, which, according to witnesses, rolled over when debris started to come down with the floodwaters, and some people were then washed away. That is why the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations has decided to open a probe into all of these allegations tonight.
And Manny, what do we know about the 2 factory workers who have been confirmed dead, and what's been the community response so far to this tragedy?
Yeah, there was a news conference today where people showed up, families of the missing. Many of them are immigrant families who work there from Latin America. They were frustrated and angry. They do not feel that the search is really getting the results that they need. In other words, to find their missing relatives. They even asked to join the search themselves. But officials are saying, look, that is simply too dangerous right now. They say they are doing their best, that there are more than 100 people covering an area that goes on for about a mile. That is the debris field where they feel they may be able to locate some of these victims.
Manuel Bajorquez in Irwin, Tennessee. Thank you. While the southeast is cleaning up from Helene, the northeast is bracing for some wet weather. Here's more from meteorologist Alex Wilson from our partners at the Weather Channel.
A cold front brings showers to the eastern half of the country this weekend. Behind that, much cooler fall-like temperatures arrive, especially during the mornings with lows in the 40s. But this is the weekend forecast. It will be warm this weekend by Sunday, especially for the northeast. We've got the showers, the thunderstorms. It's limited. I don't think we'll see a lot of wet weather. We'll keep it in check given the amount of moisture in place, but at least some scattered rain, a few rumbles of thunder. We start things off on Saturday morning into sections of New England. There's our front, though, again, coming through during the second half of your weekend in particular into the early part of Monday. Behind that, drier air, much more sunshine, but cooler morning temperatures and afternoon highs. Look at these morning lows early next week into the 40s for many, including Lexington, Roanoke, and Pittsburgh. So a lot of you waking up to temps that will require the long sleeves. Out west, we're staying hot, man. High pressure is going to keep us well above average into the triple digits for Fresno and Vegas and Phoenix tomorrow. In fact, areas could see records, including Vegas, Fresno, and getting close in Bakersfield, California. For more in-depth coverage, watch the Weather Channel on cable and now live on your favorite TV streaming device.
Alex Wilson, thank you. U.S. dock workers on the East and Gulf coasts have been on strike for 2 days now with no deal in sight. President Biden said Wednesday he will not intervene and force the union workers back to work. Analysts say a lengthy strike may cost the U.S. economy billions of dollars each day. CBS's Nancy Chen has the latest.
No contract! No word!
As dock workers join the picket lines, one word is top of mind.
Our main focus right now is automation.
Automation.
We can't have automation.
At least 25,000 union workers at 14 ports from Massachusetts to Texas are now demanding higher wages and job protections against automation, which they say threatens their industry.
Between a raise and between automation, which is more important?
I really think that automation is going to be more important. I mean, it doesn't make sense to pay us $100 an hour and robots are doing our work, so we have no hours during the week.
The use of robotic cranes, vehicles, and container management is becoming increasingly common across Asia and Western Europe.
What are the effects of automation here?
Automation leads ultimately to a significant reduction in operating costs as well as efficiency at the ports.
Automation eliminated more than 1,000 full-time roles at the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles between 2020 and 2021.
Hopefully that becomes something that other ports look at and say there is a way to resolve this, to maintain a balance of a productive workforce, but also drive these efficiencies that the economy needs.
The strike could cost the U.S. economy up to $4.5 billion a day. A prolonged strike lasting longer than a month could drive up prices for car parts, medical devices, and construction materials. At this grocery store in New York, they're stocking up on produce and other perishables, worried some staples could soon be in short supply.
If it goes weeks, a month, or more, there could be a very big effect. We'll definitely have higher prices, and we might have empty shelves.
While the White House does have some authority here and members of the administration are in touch with both sides, it says it will not get involved at this point. President Biden did say today, though, that he wants both sides to come to the table and get this strike done. John?
Nancy Chen, thank you. Still to come, New York City Mayor Adams could potentially face more corruption charges. We'll have the latest on his case. Plus, Senator J.D. Vance and Governor Tim Walz are back on the campaign trail after the vice presidential debate. Our Major Garrett joins us next with analysis from the night. You're streaming the Daily Report.
These are the stories
1, 2, 3, go!
of we, the people.
We're trying to generate our own hope.
It's a huge deal.
I'm enabling them to feel valued.
Eye on America. Weeknights on the CBS Evening News with Norah O'Donnell.
I had progressively fallen deeper into the world of online sports betting.
The risk is the rush.
What do you think is driving the spike in popularity?
I think it's legality.
If it's legal, I'm going to use it. There are ways to bet when you are 18.
We've created an epidemic of child gambling.
You can't walk into a male dormitory in a college campus without sports betting happening.
It's America's most neglected problem.
I used sports betting as a way to escape, when in reality, I'm choosing self-destruction. Whatever I had left, it was gone.
The purpose of the industry is to get you to play to extinction. And that means until all your money is gone.
Go to the ends of the earth. Reach for the stars.
Yeah, I just took off. That kind of thing.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
America Decides is your place for fact-based, unbiased reporting.
At the White House, at the Capitol, on the campaign trail.
What do you say to those in your party?
Any cracks in the Republican Party?
Our reporters and our anchors travel the country talking to voters like you
about the issues that matter most.
Immigration is really a factor right now
that are going to be driving your decisions.
What would you say to those who say, look, that's just democracy at work?
Listening to you and bringing your voice into our coverage.
I want a strong, proud America.
Is democracy on the ballot in 2024?
Let us help you decide.
America Decides. Stream our expanded one-hour program Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
Exclusively on CBS News 24/7, the streaming home of CBS News.
People with developmental disabilities were once sequestered by the hundreds of thousands in institutions.
Many of our fellow citizens are suffering tremendously because lack of attention, lack of imagination, lack of adequate manpower.
Disability activists have since torn down barriers blocking them from living at home or in the community.
We conclude that Title II of the ADA requires states to provide community-based treatment for persons with mental disabilities.
But of the 16,000 people who remain in state-operated institutions, half are in 5 states, and Illinois is one of them.
I don't want to live in the institution. It makes me feel discriminated against.
Do you think there are people living in institutions in Illinois that don't need to be living there?
Yeah, because they're proving it as soon as they get out.
Is not running as a newcomer to politics. She is the sitting vice president. If she wants to enact all of these policies to make housing more affordable, I invite her to use the office that the American people already gave her, not sit around and campaign and do nothing while Americans find the American dream of homeownership completely unaffordable.
He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
That's about as heated as it got as the two vice presidential candidates, Ohio Republican Senator J.D. Vance and Minnesota Democratic Governor Tim Walz, shared a stage for 90 minutes. While Donald Trump tapped his trademark insults and non sequiturs on social media, the two understudies inhabited a different world. In fact, some version of the phrase, "I agree with my opponent," was said at least 10 times throughout the night. Vance and Walz debated issues from health care to climate change to how to address gun violence. Immigration got the most talking time, more than 9 minutes, followed closely by abortion. CBS News Chief Washington correspondent Major Garrett joins me now. We were at the table last night. We're across the digital medium today. Major, what, if anything, now that we've had almost 24 hours to think this through, what will be taken away from this debate and its effect on the larger race?
So if this is the last national look-in moment of this campaign, John, meaning no other debates, presidential or otherwise, this could have significant importance. If the Trump-Vance ticket wins, Vance will have made himself more likable and synthesized the central argument of the Trump campaign against Kamala Harris and Governor Walz, which is the economy was better under Donald Trump, immigration is a crisis that they have created or let be created, and that the world is less stable and secure than it was then. And he also sanded down some of the roughest, most toxic elements of Trumpian rhetoric on the debate stage last night. If the Harris-Walz campaign prevails, it will be those moments talking about gun violence, access to reproductive health care, and health care writ large that clearly Governor Walz felt more comfortable with and more oriented to in terms of policy and the political future. That will be what is distinctive about his performance and might be propulsive to a Harris victory.
Since you are so often on the fact-check beat, do you have a general view of how the facts were treated by each side? I know it's very hard because there's a lot to be checked, but what's your general view about how that went in this debate?
So as you know, John, I work very closely with our CBS News Confirmed team for all of these debates. And when we put together all of our CBS Confirmed fact checks, which you can find on social media, CBS News, or go on the web, CBS News Confirmed, you'll see that many of them fall into a category of need more context, false or true, but need greater explanation. What that generally means is facts were treated with a general amount of respect. There were not extravagant claims that just were completely false. A couple of instances where they were, but in the main, there were points of emphasis or misremembered statistics about a larger point. I would say facts fared better last night than they have in the previous presidential debates.
At the end of the debate, Senator Vance would not say that Donald Trump lost. When I talked to Senator Cotton of Arkansas afterwards, he would not say that Donald Trump lost. How does that strike you? And also, obviously, in the light of Jack Smith's release today, but how does that strike you that neither of them would say that Donald Trump lost?
Here's a metaphor. It is a straitjacket that former President Trump has secured around his running mate and around other many Republicans who don't want to risk his ire over this question. They know he lost the 2020 election. And it's not just that, John. There is an answer you can give. We have some misgivings about rule changes due to COVID, but in the main, those rules were followed. We would have preferred different rules. The result is the result. Trump lost narrowly. And what that would do is say, you know what? Many Republican legislatures and states that are going to be up for grabs have addressed some of the laws. We should have confidence in the 2024 election. Our misgivings about 2020 don't exist now. They won't even say that, John. And the importance of not answering the 2020 question inserts, possibly intentionally, unnecessarily, and possibly harmful doubt about the election in front of us. That is something Republicans are going to have to reckon with as this election approaches.
Let me just grab and hold on to that for a second, Major, because what Tom Cotton and Senator Vance said is this is in the past. They don't want to talk about something in the past. The argument you just made, which I agree with, is that this is not about the past. This is about the future.
It is not a contestable question, John. If you are a national party that continues to sow doubts about an election verified in every battleground state, not once, not twice, sometimes 3 or 4 times, that was judicially tested across the country, and some of the harshest rhetoric from judges about the so-called evidence presented came from Trump-appointed judges. If you cannot accept that result, then you are by definition casting doubt on the next election. And as you do that, you cannot argue to the country credibly that you are strengthening this republic, this democratic experiment. You can only account for the weaknesses you are intentionally injecting into that scaffolding, that infrastructure.
Major Garrett from Washington, D.C. Thank you, Major. New York City Mayor Eric Adams could face even more charges in his federal corruption case. During a hearing Wednesday, prosecutors said they're pursuing, quote, several related investigations after unsealing an indictment against the Democrat last week. Adams has pleaded not guilty to 5 counts, including bribery and solicitation of a contribution by a foreign national. Prosecutors accused Adams of having corrupt relationships with foreign business people, including at least one Turkish government official dating back a decade. He denies the claims. A doctor has pleaded guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to distribute ketamine in connection with the death of actor Matthew Perry. The 54-year-old was found dead at his Los Angeles home last October. His autopsy listed acute effects of ketamine as the main cause of death. Dr. Mark Chavez is one of 5 people facing federal charges in connection with Perry's death. As part of a plea deal, he admitted to stealing from the ketamine infusion clinic where he worked and conspiring with another doctor to supply the controlled substance to Perry. Chavez could face up to 10 years in prison. A county in Georgia has extended its shelter-in-place advisory after chlorine was detected in the air after Sunday's fire at a chemical plant. Smoke from the fire, which has since been extinguished, continues to linger over the community in Rockdale County. Officials warn weather patterns are exacerbating the issue by causing air quality to drop overnight. The local fire chief says the fire began when a sprinkler had malfunctioned, causing a, quote, mixture with a water-reactive chemical. That exact chemical has not been confirmed, but the facility is run by a company that produces Clorox-branded pool cleaning products made with chlorine. California Governor Gavin Newsom signed a law this week banning legacy admission preferences at private colleges. This will go into effect in the fall of 2025 at schools that factor in if applicants have family connections. The law will affect some of the country's most selective universities, including Stanford and the University of Southern California. Newsom said the ban will make higher education more accessible and fair. Legacy admissions began facing criticism after the Supreme Court's decision last year to ban affirmative action in the admissions process. Israel vows to retaliate following an Iranian missile attack. Ahead, what a response could look like as Israeli leaders weigh their options. You're streaming the Daily Report.
On Face the Nation, we try to have an informed conversation about the essential issues of the day. The way to learn is to listen to the answers and to ask follow-up questions. Why did you miss the moment?
I'm not sure why they missed the moment.
Listening to how someone explains themselves is so key to understanding their perspective. And that's why the face-to-face ones we have on Face the Nation are so important.
On America, weeknights on the CBS Evening News with Norah O'Donnell.
This case, it's like a screenplay, something straight out of Hollywood.
But it's not fiction. It's 48 hours.
Human remains found this week.
4 families shattered.
There's no physical evidence.
The mystery would haunt investigators for years.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Like a John Grisham novel.
A gripping true crime original. 48 hours. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Let's do it! Let's go! Let's do this!
I can see clearly now that the rain is gone.
Superstar approaching, superstar approaching.
Just get your popcorn and get ready.
Come on, Julia.
Oh, no.
I will if you will.
You go, gal.
Yeah, boy!
Dollar Jill.
If you can't get into the market, it's okay. Renting is fine.
Box, oh, it's bad. Screw cap, oh, it's bad. It's not true.
We are making a wonderful lemony chicken.
Ooh, it's hot.
That's good.
I wonder what Serena's doing. I wonder how Serena is feeling.
That's a really good question. No one's asked me that yet.
You're
70 years old?
70,
yeah. I'm 21. We'll see you 7 o'clock sharp.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you.
Big news coming out of the NFL. A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
With highlights.
What a finish at the final round of play.
And in-depth analysis.
Can they three-peat? Tony Romo joins the conversation.
What can you say about this game?
When you need your sports in a snap,
we're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
Find it on CBS Sports HQ. Streaming free anywhere you are.
The CBS News original 60 Minutes opens its archives.
Pretty loose for a Friday night.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not my first show.
With moments you haven't heard before.
It's almost more fun that way when you have something to prove.
Listen to 60 Minutes, a second look, wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to the Daily Report. I'm John Dickerson. Here are some additions to our top stories. President Biden took an aerial tour of the damage left behind by Hurricane Helene in the Carolinas on Wednesday. He flew over the area because of poor road conditions and to keep his presidential motorcade from interfering with recovery efforts. Biden plans to visit Florida and Georgia on Thursday. Wednesday marked day 2 of a dock worker strike affecting ports from Texas to New England. 25,000 workers are demanding higher pay and more job security in the face of automation. Biden called for negotiations to continue and, quote, get this strike done. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, issued a warning to Iran and its proxies Wednesday. Don't target the U.S. or Israel again. She urged the UN Security Council to condemn Tuesday's attack and impose serious consequences. Iran claims it attacked Israel out of self-defense. Israel has promised retaliation for Iran's Tuesday missile attack. It was Iran's second direct attack on Israeli territory this year. Israel's anti-missile system, the Iron Dome, and nearby American warships intercepted most of the nearly 200 projectiles. World leaders have called for de-escalation to avoid a regional war, but Israel is already engaged in multiple conflicts. IDF troops are conducting ground operations against Hezbollah militants in southern Lebanon. In Gaza, fighting continues with Hamas. And in Syria, state media reports Israeli airstrikes hit the capital city, Damascus, killing at least 3 people. John Alterman joins us now. He's a senior vice president and director of the Middle East program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. John, it's good to have you back. When Iran attacked Israel in April, Israel responded with a limited strike. How is it different this time, and what level of response would you expect to this attack?
You know, the biggest difference is if Prime Minister Netanyahu is a gambler, he's got a really hot hand. For the last 2 weeks at least, and arguably for the last several months, he's taken risks that people thought were crazy. And each time the risk has paid off. He decapitated Hezbollah, which everybody said was the sort of huge power that would constantly threaten Israel. I think that the real uncertainty here is just how lucky Netanyahu feels. He certainly also feels that right before an election against a foe like Iran, the United States is going to protect him rather than pressure him, and that gives him just a little bit more freedom of action.
John, what is it about those risks he's taken? Is there a unifying principle? In other words, did he basically call Iran's bluff? What's behind the scenario you just painted, or that idea of risk?
It seems to me that what he's done is everybody said, well, what about the aftermath? What about escalation? What about all the things that could go wrong? He said instead, what about all the things that could go right? Hassan Nasrallah has been threatening us for decades, and we can destroy him. We can destroy his lieutenants. Israel has eliminated the entire top echelon of Hezbollah. Everybody said Hezbollah was a fact of life. It will be affecting Lebanon. It will be affecting Israel. Hezbollah now is in shambles. The question, I think, for Israel, the really important question, is what fills the vacuum? And that's the risk that Netanyahu is willing to accept. And I think a lot of other countries are saying, let's see, how do we preserve lock-in gains rather than keep doubling down, doubling down, doubling down?
Going back to your point about U.S. leverage, help me understand how that's changed and what the position now is with respect to Israel, given this essentially 5-front set of challenges they have. I mean, if it's Hamas, Hezbollah, Syria, Iran, and then the Houthis in Yemen, that's 5. How is the U.S. position with respect to Israel at this moment?
You know, I spoke with somebody in the White House about this today. Netanyahu has time after time rebuffed the president's big gestures, whether it was on a peace deal in May, whether it was on how we're going to do the hostage release, everything. But there have been a number of times in the last several months when the United States has really tried to lay down the law and say, this is the way we're going to fix it. And Netanyahu has said, no. What he counts on is partly the American political context in terms of broad support for Israel, in terms of the impending election. But I think he also counts on the fact that he has all the right enemies. The United States isn't going to protect Hezbollah. The United States isn't going to protect Iran. And just the way last night, when Iran tried to bomb Israel, it was the American military that helped defend Israel. I think he's counting on not only not having weapons cut, but the United States continuing to defend Israel, defend Israeli lives because of an enduring sense in this administration that American interests and Israeli interests are strategically aligned. Whatever you think about Prime Minister Netanyahu's diplomacy, his politics, anything else, ultimately the feeling of the White House is our countries are aligned.
So the last question, John. The countries are aligned based on what this White House thinks. Is there a way to think wisely about how a next administration, whoever the president would be, should be thinking about these questions and something voters should be thinking about as they evaluate the candidates with about a month left on this part of the world, which is so dangerous right now?
Yeah, I think right now, Netanyahu is correct that American politics, Congress is lined up behind Israel. I think that the question one has to wonder about is under what circumstances might that change? If there's a larger scale war, would that pull Americans closer to Israel against its adversaries, make people feel that Israel dragged the United States into a war? It seems to me that that's where things change. But if you look at the current situation, as I look at the campaigns, it seems to me that there's not much of an instinct in either campaign to really put the screws to Israel. Instead, there's a sense of we're aligned with Israel. We want to defend Israel. Let's try to ride this thing out. And let's be sure that when we're looking for a resolution, we're locking in some gains and not having everything slide toward chaos, a vacuum that draws American troops into the region again and again.
John Alterman with the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Thanks again, John.
Always good to see you, John. Thank you.
Jewish people around the world are celebrating Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, but the celebrations are different this year for some families in Israel whose loved ones have been missing since Hamas's October 7th attack. Elizabeth Palmer has more from Tel Aviv.
This used to be the public plaza in front of the Museum of Art in Tel Aviv, but it's been renamed Hostage Square. There are photographs of the hostages all around, and also this very moving monument. Basically, it's a long dinner table, one place setting for every one of the people still held by Hamas, we think, in Gaza. And it's a reminder that across Israel there will be families gathering to celebrate with one or even two very painful absences at the table. A short time ago, even weeks, everybody assumed this plaza would be crowded in these days coming up to the anniversary of the October 7th massacre. We would have seen people here praying and meditating, and we would have heard the hostage families asking the government to make a deal with Hamas to bring the hostages home. But there's almost no one here. It's proof that attention has shifted away from the hostages themselves, but also from the political and intelligence failures that led up to the October 7th massacre. Israel's attention has shifted, of course, to the offensive in the north, and then, as of last night, the new threat from Iran. Elizabeth Palmer, CBS News, Tel Aviv.
Last year, CBS News met with an Israeli family who experienced significant loss on October 7th. 6 of their family members were either taken hostage or killed that day by Hamas. Haley Ott sat down with them 1 year later as they try to bring home their last surviving loved one.
This is traditional New Year food.
Efrat Machikawa is preparing dinner for Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year.
We glaze the spinach in layers of honey. And it's amazing. May I give you
I would love some, yes.
It's been almost a year since we last visited Efrat at her home in southern Israel, days after the October 7th Hamas attacks. Then 6 members of her family had just been killed or taken hostage.
Has this changed your view of humanity?
I think that in the search of bringing a solution to this humanitarian crisis of the Israeli hostages, I am also in the search of earning trust back in humanity.
Efrat has spent the last year working to bring her surviving loved ones home.
I urge you to make it your personal and primary mission.
1 was killed and 4 were eventually released, including her elderly aunt Margalit, who had been kidnapped with serious health issues. When she finally made it out of captivity, it took time for her to accept what happened on October 7th.
And it wasn't easy for her to realize what really happened to her house, to her community, to her friends, to people she loved. It took time to actually deliver
that news.
Part of that news, that Margalit and Efrat's family member, Gadi Moses, still remains in captivity in Gaza. So for Efrat, the work to achieve a hostage deal continues into another year.
There must be a hope. I am hopeful. I don't think I'll ever be able not to be hopeful. I don't have the capacity not to be hopeful.
Haley Ott, CBS News, Southern Israel.
Now to a digest of some other foreign stories. Russia has captured a key frontline city in eastern Ukraine. The Ukrainian military on Wednesday said it ordered troops to pull out of the city of Vuhledar in order to preserve personnel and equipment. About 14,000 people lived in the city before the war. Russia currently occupies about a fifth of Ukrainian territory. Schools and businesses across Taiwan have temporarily shut down as a powerful typhoon approaches the land. The storm is expected to make landfall Thursday morning. Already, torrential rain and strong winds from it have led dozens of injuries and at least 2 deaths. Typhoons typically strike Taiwan's mountainous east coast, but the storm is on track to hit the densely populated west. Mexico has sworn in Claudia Sheinbaum as its first female president. She took the oath of office on Tuesday in Mexico City. During her inauguration speech, she addressed economic concerns and called for expanding investments in infrastructure and small businesses. She briefly mentioned the drug cartels that control some parts of the country, but did not offer a plan to deal with them directly. Special counsel Jack Smith's court filing on Donald Trump's election interference case has been unsealed. We'll have more analysis on the 165-page report and what it could mean for the former president. You're streaming The Daily Report.
Washington is the seat of power. National security, foreign policy, global economics, every story comes through Washington in some way. We bring some of the most powerful voices in America to the table. We don't just ask the questions, you have to go deeper. We try to understand what's at the heart of the issue we're talking about, to then come forward with solutions.
Face the Nation on CBS.
The justices ruled that Harvard and the University of North Carolina violated the Constitution.
In the aftermath of the Supreme Court decision to end affirmative action in college admissions, uncertainty sets in for some students of color.
Affirmative action really gave us an equal opportunity.
CBS Reports explores the historic decision and what it means for those chasing an opportunity to change their lives.
I knew that college was the ticket to break this cycle.
The end of affirmative action, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
America Decides is your place for fact-based, unbiased reporting.
At the White House, at the Capitol, on the campaign trail.
What do you say to those in your party?
Any cracks in the Republican Party?
Our reporters and our anchors travel the country talking to voters like you
about the issues that matter most.
Immigration is really a factor right now
that are going to be driving your decisions.
What would you say to those who say, look, that's just democracy at work?
Listening to you and bringing your voice into our coverage.
I want a strong, proud America.
Is democracy on the ballot in 2024?
Let us help you decide.
America Decides on CBS News 24/7.
Stream our expanded one-hour program Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
AI is among the most world-changing technologies ever.
Curing diseases, scientific breakthroughs, making lives better.
They can help us with medical discoveries, scientific discoveries, doing better agriculture, having cures for things like Alzheimer's.
It's also going to really transform the way we work.
The uplifting potential of artificial intelligence is limitless.
It gives you a friend, somebody to chat with 24/7 that is non-judgmental. He makes me feel loved and desired.
And so are its downfalls.
The problem with all this AI is that it's unpredictable and uncontrollable.
The choices we make now will have lasting effects for decades, maybe even centuries.
The ChatGPT revolution, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
We are about to see American weapons in the hands of Mexican cartels.
A gun pipeline to Mexico.
We are arming the cartels.
100%, no doubt about it.
Happening right under our noses.
Who's doing something about this? Nobody.
A CBS Reports exclusive.
Most Americans have no idea that we are effectively arming the enemy next door.
This is the story the American people need to know.
Arming cartels, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
As we've been reporting, Special Counsel Jack Smith's unsealed filing has revealed new evidence in the federal election interference case against former President Donald Trump. The former president is facing 4 charges in the election interference case, including conspiracy to defraud the United States. He has pleaded not guilty. The 165-page report is split into 4 parts: the evidence against Trump, the legal issues with presidential immunity, how Smith's evidence is not protected by immunity, and what the government is asking the court to do. For more, thank goodness, I'm going to bring in now CBS News legal contributor Jessica Levinson. She's also a professor at Loyola Law School in Los Angeles. Jessica, most people are going to ask, why this, why now? Tell us why we're talking about this at this moment.
Well, we're talking about this because the Supreme Court made a decision back, I think it was actually July 1st, usually we say the end of June, about presidential immunity. And that affected this case. And the question, of course, and we got to talk about this, was do presidents or former presidents enjoy immunity from criminal prosecution? And the court said yes and no. And what the court did is they laid out these 3 different buckets. So there are official actions that somebody takes, and then there is presumptive immunity. That's kind of the middle bucket. Then there are actions that only a president can take, core presidential functions. And then there is absolute immunity. And then there's what Jack Smith says everything in this case falls within, and that's private acts where there is no immunity. So we're here because Jack Smith had to go back to the trial court judge, Judge Chutkan, and say, I can move forward with this case. I know what the Supreme Court said. I know they created this broad immunity, but virtually everything that you see before you is about private conduct, no immunity. Let's go and have this trial.
So essentially the Supreme Court said, to have this case go forward, you have to parallel park your car between these 2 existing space. You have to fill in this narrow little space, and that's what he's done here, written a strategic document that answers their new definition of things and says to the judge, okay, we're good. You can go forward now and not have to worry about anything that the Supreme Court said is not allowed.
It's exactly right. I love the parallel parking analogy, which is he's saying, we're fine. I know I can't park there. I know I can't park there. I parked in exactly the right place. And this is 157 pages of Special Counsel Jack Smith saying, I read the immunity decision, and let me tell you why all of this is actually private conduct, why we're talking about Donald Trump as a private citizen, a candidate, why we're not talking about Donald Trump as the president of the United States, because that's where he would run into problems. If these allegations are based on actions that President Trump took allegedly in his capacity as the president, immunity. If these allegations are based on actions that he took as a candidate, actions that, John, you or I could take if we tried to become a candidate for office, then there is no immunity. And that's what Jack Smith is spending 157 pages arguing to Judge Chutkan.
Now, it's not entirely argumentation, right? There's some actual new evidence or some findings in this. What did you see? I know this is just coming out, but what did you see? And also, what's it in the service of that he's gathered since we were all paying attention to this the last time?
Yeah, so you're right. This is a superseding indictment. There's a lot of facts here. And, the irony is if we hadn't had that immunity decision, we actually wouldn't be learning all of these new facts before the election. So what I see are, frankly, a lot of acts that Jack Smith alleges that deal with Donald Trump talking to surrogates, talking to Steve Bannon, we can basically surmise as one of the people listed in the indictment. Rudy Giuliani, talking to all these campaign operatives, not people in the federal government, not Donald Trump saying, let's pull the levers of power when it comes to my position as president. but saying to his supporters, saying to his surrogates, I'm not going to declare that Joe Biden won, and here's how we are going to impose chaos. Now, there's one point that a lot of people are pointing to in the coverage already, where apparently an aide rushed in to talk to Donald Trump on January 6th and said, Mike Pence is under threat. He's in a secure location. And the response allegedly was, so what? And that's one of the new pieces of new to us evidence that would be presented in a potential trial.
Jessica Levinson, thank you, as always, for helping us sort through all that. On this day, 57 years ago, the first African-American Supreme Court justice was sworn in. Thurgood Marshall was nominated to the bench by President Lyndon B. Johnson in 1967. During his tenure, he oversaw several landmark cases that transformed civil rights and racial equality in the United States. Marshall rose to prominence as the attorney who successfully argued to end racial segregation in public schools in the 1954 Supreme Court case, Brown versus Board of Education. He was later appointed Solicitor General by President John F. Kennedy. Marshall retired from the High Court in 1991. Still to come, a massive treasure hunt has ended, but mystery still surrounds the winner. We'll explain what that's all about. You're streaming The Daily Report.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy. And reach for the stars.
Here we are. Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun. But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking.
Welcome to the idea of being a human being.
Innovative and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
At this moment, terrorists could be plotting another attack.
9/11 triggered a counter-terrorist system that included a secret database.
This person needs a closer look.
A growing list of nearly 2 million people, including some Americans who say they're innocent.
For 1 hour flight, I have to spend 6 hours to go and come back.
CBS Reports explores the system, the people responsible for it, and those pushing for change.
I'm not fighting against them. I'm fighting for them to do the right thing.
The Watch List, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Don't miss true crime anytime you want, anywhere you go. With the 48 Hours podcast. Real crimes, real lives, real justice.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Listen to 48 Hours on Apple Podcasts.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
Imagine yourself in Manhattan with no police, no army, no mayor.
The people of Haiti stare down poverty, corruption, natural disasters, and violence.
90% of the guns that are used by gangs in Haiti are American guns.
But with an unbreakable spirit and eternal optimism.
There are days where I cry, but we can't be discouraged. We still believe in Haiti.
They're still able to look ahead with hope.
Haiti is on the brink of transformation, a radical shift. Nations are coming together and saying things must change.
Fighting for Haiti, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Hey there, welcome to The Uplift.
I thought she was a groom, and I stepped back and I went, oh, you're the queen. She's going to be with me every instant that I'm alive.
I just wanted to see if you'd go to Disneyland with me today.
I look over at him and he's smiling.
I'm going to remember that the rest of my life.
They told us when he was going to be born, he was only going to live for 30 minutes. It's really a miracle that he's with us today.
The Uplift. Stream now on the free CBS News app.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
On our places, bright, shiny faces.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my 2 good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings.
A CBS News investigation. People looking for love, finding their life savings gone.
This could happen to anybody.
And sometimes losing their lives. Anything for love. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Operations at a Japanese airport were suddenly disrupted Wednesday due to an unexpected remnant of history, a 500-pound bomb. An American World War II 500-pound bomb suddenly exploded at Miyazaki Airport in southwest Japan. It left a crater in a taxiway that measured about 7 feet wide and 1 foot deep. More than 80 flights were canceled. Fortunately, no one was hurt. It's unclear what triggered the explosion. The airport was originally a Navy base, and officials say unexploded bombs had been found there before. Someone has struck gold in a massive treasure hunt in western Massachusetts. Video game developers launched Project Skydrop last month. The goal, find a gold trophy worth $26,000. The contest gets its name from clues dropped from above. The trophy was hidden in the woods somewhere in the Northeast. Winning comes with a bonus bounty of more than $80,000. In order to claim the money, though, the winner must record a video of themselves retrieving the trophy and uploading it to YouTube. The search came to an end Tuesday when the organizers announced the prize had been found. The winner remains anonymous, and the video to collect the bigger winnings has not yet been made. A couple who say they spoke to the winner in the woods said he's a scientist who studied environmental patterns to find the trophy. Here's a look at some of the stories we're covering in the next hour. President Biden sees the devastation from Hurricane Helene firsthand. We'll have a report from the ground as cleanup continues. Plus, dock workers leave vital ports behind on day 2 of their strike. What the White House now has to say about the resolution of the strike. And as the dust settles from the only vice presidential debate of 2024, both campaigns focus on battleground states, with some voters already casting their ballots. You're streaming CBS News.
These are the stories
1, 2, 3, go!
of We the People.
We're trying to generate our own hope.
It's a huge deal.
I'm enabling them to feel valued.
Eye on America, weeknights on the CBS Evening News with Norah O'Donnell.
I had progressively fallen deeper into the world of online sports betting.
The risk is the rush.
What do you think is driving the spike in popularity?
I think it's legality.
If it's legal, I'm going to use it. There are ways to bet when you are 18.
We've created an epidemic of child gambling. You can't walk into a male dormitory in a college campus without sports betting happening. It's America's most neglected problem. I used sports betting as a way to escape, when in reality, I'm choosing self-destruction. Whatever I had left, it was gone. The purpose of the industry is to get you to play to extinction. And that means until all your money is gone.
Go to the ends of the earth. Reach for the stars.
Yeah, I just took off. That kind of thing.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
America Decides is your place for fact-based, unbiased reporting.
At the White House, at the Capitol, on the campaign trail.
What do you say to those in your party? Any cracks in the Republican Party?
Our reporters and our anchors travel the country talking to voters like you
about the issues that matter most.
Immigration is really a factor right now
that are going to be driving your decisions.
What would you say to those who say, look, that's just democracy at work?
Listening to you and bringing your voice into our coverage.
I want a strong, proud America.
Is democracy on the ballot in 2024?
Let us help you decide.
America Decides. Stream our expanded 1-hour program Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
Exclusively on CBS News 24/7, the streaming home of CBS News.
People with developmental disabilities were once sequestered by the hundreds of thousands in institutions.
Many of our fellow citizens are suffering tremendously because lack of attention, lack of imagination, lack of adequate manpower.
Disability activists have since torn down barriers blocking them from living at home or in the community.
We conclude that Title II of the ADA requires states to provide community-based treatment for persons with mental disabilities.
But of the 16,000 people who remain in state-operated institutions, half are in 5 states, and Illinois is one of them.
I don't want to live in the institution. It makes me feel discriminated against.
Do you think there are people living in institutions in Illinois that don't need to be living there?
Yeah, because they're proving it as soon as they get out.
Eye on America, weeknights on the CBS Evening News.